Paisley sits in the shadow of its larger neighbour, Glasgow. The poet John Kent wrote, "Yet Paisley's name is widely spread, history doth show it, been famed alike for shawls and thread, for poverty and poets." The Celtic saint St. Mirren founded a church here in the 6th century, and a village called Passalat grew up around it. Today, the successor to Mirren's church is Paisley Abbey. Walter FitzAlan, hereditary High Steward of Scotland, invited Benedictine monks to found the abbey here. In return for the grant of the abbey lands, the monks assisted in the development of Renfrewshire with new methods of farming and education. All that remains of the medieval abbey are the nave and the west front. The green copper roof is from the turn of the century. These gargoyles date from the Restoration. Here is Jonah and the whale. Robert the Bruce received absolution here after murdering the Red Comyn at the altar of Greyfriars Church in Dumfries. Bruce's daughter Marjorie married Walter and founded the Stuart dynasty, who were to rule for the next 300 years. She was thrown from her horse on the Renfrew Road nearby and died as a result. She is thought to be buried here. Dominating the cross is the enigmatic war memorial designed by Sir Robert Lorimer. Here, soldiers of the Great War huddle around the mounted figure of Robert the Bruce, commemorating not only those who died pro patria, but Paisley's royal connection. Nearby, in what used to be the Abbey Close, stands the Clark Town Hall with its 2 odd towers. This one used to play a medley of Scots tunes. Outside is Robert Tannehill's statue, the most famous of Paisley's weaver poets. Sadly, he drowned himself, aged 36, after being rejected by a publisher. His friends included the satirist Alexander Wilson, who left for America to escape prosecution for his radical views. He became a well-known ornithologist, writing and illustrating the now famous America's Birds. Another Paisley radical who left for America was the Reverend John Witherspoon, who became the only clergyman to sign the American Declaration of Independence. The classical town hall is the gift of one of Paisley's great industrialists, George Aiken Clark. The Clarks were one of the earliest Paisley textile dynasties, who were eventually to be taken over by the Coates. At the other end of the town hall are statues to Peter and Thomas Coates, whose names became synonymous throughout the world with thread. Their industry and generosity has left a lasting mark on the town. 2 devoutly Christian men, whose statues are curiously adorned with semi-naked women. Behind them is this charming Art Nouveau statue of a young woman and 2 children. Queen Victoria looks the other way. The River Cart is the source of Paisley's prosperity. The monks founded their mill here at this waterfall near the town centre. Although once known for the quality of its freshwater perils, the river provided power for mills and later water for the mill's steam engines. The quality of water ensured that Paisley had the world's first filtered water supply. The small shot cottages in aptly named Shuttle Street give us an insight into life for the weaver and his family before the clerks and the courts. These were self-employed people for whom the threat of mass production was very real. They were educated, articulate, and politically radical. Silk, lace, and linen were all produced, and in 1766 there were 1,767 looms in Paisley. The weavers may have had a good conceit of themselves, but the Industrial Revolution brought change. A few families, by takeovers and mergers, gained control over the entire industry. Where previously a few corks, as they were known locally, supplied the raw materials and sold the finished goods, the weavers were very much their own men. Now, with mechanization and an influx of cheap labour due to the Highland clearances, the employer was king. The company store and the company-owned flat ensured that weavers would be less dissenting than in the past. The Mile End Mill dominates the street, and the plainer workers' houses are nearest the mill. Further away at the top of the hill are the more ornate bay-windowed ones for the foreman. Just outside the town centre stands Peter and James Clark's Seed Hill Mill, built in the site of the Benedictine monks' Abbey Mill. Now derelict, and its vast site owned by a supermarket, it awaits sympathetic redevelopment. The recent destruction of the Coates Brothers Fergusley Park Mill is a great loss to the town. A major part of Paisley's industrial heritage gone forever. Most of the mill buildings were designed by a Bradford firm of architects who were experts in the field, hence the extensive use of bricks. Modern housing now occupies the vast site, but a few of the mill buildings have been retained and converted to flats. This is the Northgate House. This is an Indian's head from the land of cotton. The canal is a poignant reminder of the Paisley Canal disaster of 1810, when a barge carrying child textile workers overturned, drowning 100. This was once the counting house, now restored from a dismal ruin. The Coates were great benefactors. This observatory was given to the town in 1884. Dominating the town, in much the same way that the Coates dominated the local economy, is the Thomas Coates Memorial Church, the largest Baptist church in Europe, and probably the finest in the world. It took 10 years to build and can seat 1,000 people. Thomas Coates clearly intended that his church should live and abideth forever. Elaborate carvings cover every surface. Wealth from cotton, used for the glory of God. No local architect was thought to be up to the job, and Coates employed the wonderfully named Hippolyte J. Blanc, who had restored the Great Hall at Edinburgh Castle. Here is the church nearing completion in 1894. The crown steeple caps the 240 feet high tower. The minister's loo is perfectly preserved, as is his vestry. Unfortunately, substandard stone was used, and problems were discovered as soon as the building was completed. The entire building was soaked in linseed oil to make it watertight, and only now is this drying out. Thomas Coates was never able to climb the front steps because he was in a wheelchair. The old back walk, running parallel to the High Street, is now called Oak Shaw. Oak Shaw Trinity was the old High Kirk. It was designed by a local bailie, John White, in 1750. White was also the architect of the toll booth, long demolished. The church's elegant tower and steeple can be seen from all over Paisley. Now converted to flats is the Orr Square Church, built in 1845 in the then fashionable Romanesque revival style. Churches are all over Oak Shaw, a testimony to the religious zeal of the Paisley weavers. Over 10 different denominations are represented here, and each church vies with the others to be the epitome of Victorian taste and style. Rather plain by comparison, this is the Gallic Chapel. Curiously, its sign is in English and Latin. This used to be the grammar school. Education was always important to the weavers. Firstly, to the handloom weavers in their political struggles, But later employers, like the Coates, with their paternalistic attitudes, built the Fergusley School to encourage education amongst their workers. In the shadow of the great mill, the Half-Timers School stands as a monument to the Coates brothers' enlightened attitudes. Sadly, a fire during the school's recent use as a nightclub has all but destroyed it. This panel shows the mathematics lesson. Elaborate carving and expensive materials give us a clue to the benefactor's attitude. If this was to be some token gesture, then the building would surely have been much plainer. Hopefully, like many of Paisley's other redundant buildings, some new use can be found for it, and it can be restored. Paisley, as we see it today, is very much a 19th century tenement town, like Glasgow or Dundee, with an enormous variety of architectural styles. Scots baronial, Edwardian classical, this one is Jacobean, with intriguing strapwork carved into the red sandstone. The High Street has just about every style imaginable. This tenement in New Street was built by Willie McLennan, a local self-taught architect. The Bull Inn is one of the best Art Nouveau pub interiors around, full of great details like fireplaces and stained glass. Not far away is St. Matthew's Church, built by McLennan in 1905. Like the pub, it is a riot of Art Nouveau detailing. It was never completed, and it should have had a spire, a sort of Art Nouveau version of the one in Coates' church. Like any prosperous town, you can always see the contrasts between rich and poor. This merchant's house is quite different to the weavers' cottages. These Edwardian villas are actually on the driveway of a Georgian mansion, which in turn has a Victorian porch added to the front. Edwardian houses sit cheek by jowl with a Georgian coach house. In Orr Square, this terrace shows the Georgian concern for elegant proportions. By the turn of the century, Paisley had expanded beyond the old borough boundaries, southward to Thornley Park. Architect Willie McLennan built 3 spectacular villas in Thornley Park Avenue. Each one has a wealth of Art Nouveau detail in metal, wood and stained glass. Our dine has a magnificent stained glass window in the hall. Glen Arm has a huge hall with an inglenook fireplace. This is Ardine's dining room. And its daringly cantilevered porch. This ribbon of glass is way ahead of its time. On the Barhead Road, McLennan built Thorscrag in 1924 for a family of dyers. It is one of the most unusual houses in Scotland. It has reinforced concrete walls and floors, and the exterior is made from reconstituted red sandstone. Everywhere is evidence of the architect's love of eccentric detailing. From around the same period is the Russell Institute, built by Steele Maitland in 1926. The sculptures are by Archibald Dawson, and fittingly for a children's clinic, show sick children.
War-torn Bosnia, life's about to change for the warriors.